Hi friends, today we will see how we can use the Boomi Atompshere API. Let me share my screen. Okay, Boomi Atompshere API allows you to, as it says, a platform API. It's allows you to retrieve a lot of information about your platform. It could be uh, logs extraction, it could be different components you want to see, or it could be you want to see the what roles you have. uh, like it's a complete whatever the even if you can do the packaging and deployment, like whatever the platform related activities you are doing with the GUI on the mouse clicks, you will be able to do all those things with Atompshere API. So this Atompshere API is so powerful, and it has so many features with this Atompshere API. So we can build a lot of use cases. These use cases will might help you to internally internal to the organization to get a lot of insights about your Boomi components or executions or Boomi processes. Like a lot of information you can get with this Boomi Atompshere API. So first, let's see all these Atompshere API. Like first, how we will be able to connect to the Atompshere API. So first, let me just search with me Atompshere. When you go to this Boomi Atompshere API, so in early versions of the Boomi, like it did not have any connector has been created. We used to um, make these calls with SOAP as a SOAP because they have been provided as a WSDL in initial times. So you can see that this Boomi developed both as a REST-ish as well as SOAP implementation. So in the later versions, the Boomi has make these things as a REST as well as a SOAP-based implementations. So basically, Boomi Atompshere API provides two types of objects. So like one is object representation, another one is execution representation. When I say execution representation, for example, execute process, or you want to retrieve any objects, there are a lot of objects are available. So it's object verb hierarchy. So object tells like whether it is atom startup properties or environment or account or whatever it is, user role or component. Or so you can have object, and verb is basically action, like what action you wanted to perform against this particular object. For example, I want to see what is the user roles of account user roles object. I want to see about the atom startup properties. So you can maybe update the properties, you can maybe query entire properties. But again, for each object to object specific, there is API, what kind of verbs that can be allowed. So that's been completely documented over the documentation. So you can see that all Atompshere API calls use a API token or username password for authentication. So an account associated with it means using this API Atompshere, you can only make to the account that you are able to log in. Okay, so you can use either username based authentication or API token based authentication. So we have here, you can see that Atompshere Partner API, which supports additional partner-specific operations. And again, Atompshere API, Partner API enables you to API-based objects. And moreover, like the advantage of this connector is it won't comes under a charge licensing count. So you can use this any number of times this connection. It won't come under the license because this consider all the Boomi platforms, all the Boomi platform related connectors. It will come under the platform one, so it won't charge you anything. If you want to see this one, like REST one, this is how you want to see this one. If you want to go for SOAP, you can see the SOAP. For example, if you go to the SOAP, right? So what all things you can be able to, but if you have any SOAP UI something, you want to see what things are available, you can just see how many operations are available. You can also just Google it for get the WSDL and see how these things works. For example, if you go to this, what is my account ID is this one, account ID is this one. You just put this account ID. In case if your account has an authentication, it will enable and force you to enable the authentication. Otherwise, it will just give you the complete visual. Okay, it is asking for authentication because it's either you can put API token or it can put when you're accessing through. Okay, so when you see here, right, so there is a lot of operations has been given, but let me just put the same thing over here. If you just see what all operations are there, go to SOAP. If you are using it for first time, like this SOAP web services can be used to trigger the REST SOAP as well as the REST web services. So it's now it is asking for all the visuals it is getting. Okay, so you can see lot many operations in SOAP. You can see execute operations, like these are kind of some execute related things. So all these processes, deploy process, execute process, deploy component, all these things are basically an action based, because this API supports two types of operations. One is object based operations. So this one, like object based operations. Other one is um, so this is that side is some limitation. Both REST and SOAP implementation of it has the following usage limits. So 10 requests per second, but that's still huge. But this still this limit is applies. But this limit is more than enough for us if you want to build any of the things. If you just go to Atompshere API. Okay, if you want to use this Atompshere API, there is a open API specifications also, but I'm not going in detail to that. But in terms of REST one. But if you go to this one, right, so you can use this Atompshere API for partner authentication also. But I will just go and see what is a object-based operations. Okay, you can see API actions. In addition to object-based operations, what are the object-based operations? These are all object-based operations. If you see, right, there is a table here. What object you want to perform, whether for each and every verb for this object, whether this is supported or not. And also, if you go to the specific documentation also, you will be able to see same thing. For example, I wanted to explore about the very simple one is a connector object. Okay, if you go to this connector object, right? So there are a lot of things. If you just go to this connector object, what it will do, use the connector object to retrieve information about the type of the connector that exists on the account. So what type of the connectors the Boomi has, what and all total number of connectors that have in your account, that you can be able to pull everything with this one. So equivalent to list of connector types available in the process start shape. So it's, you can see, I mean, typically you'll be able to do all these things with graphical, but you want to make something kind of automation, the same thing, then we need to use the Atompshere API. So this is more similar, like whenever you create a new process under the start shape, whatever the list of connectors are showing, all this the same thing is going to retrieve the same functionality. So this you can do the query operations. So, and this connector operation, the reason because I took this connector object is this is kind of a child object to the component metadata objects, because component metadata object will give you some set of parameters like component type, subtype. So when subtype comes, for example, I want to retrieve all HTTP connections or all HTTP operations, then the connector metadata will only give you whether it is a connection or operation, a standard subtype, but it won't give you anything, specific things. So what and all the list of values you can pass with the subtype is, will be able to get these with things. So now we can see the connector type object will give you only these two things, type and name. So let's see if I have anything connector over here. Because this is a visual base, so it won't, so all these are like action based, object based things. We might need to see that information in REST way. So if you see the connector types, you will get these two things, type and name. The type reference the type and name reference the name. So what operations you can perform on this object? You can say get, you can support it, query supported, no other actions is supported. So if this supports means you should be able to create a connector. No, through API you will not. So update, execute, delete. See the execute option was not there. That's why you don't see this one here. If you see any execute operations, you'll be able to see in the wisdom. Okay, now this is all list of objects that you can perform object-based operation. There is one more thing called action-based operation. In addition to object-based operations, Atompshere API supports action-based operation that do not fall. So that do not fall object verb category. So only two types of ways you can features provided. One is object-based operations. For every object, what type of actions you want to perform. Another one is action-based operation. So you can see cancel execution, all these things you might be seeing here. The execution, execute process, all these things you have option. Cancel, execute, change listener status. So the deploy component, deploy process, download atom log. So these are something like, execute action based things. But so these are the high level things we want to explain. But let me go and see. I have already built an Atompshere API connector sample process to retrieve this and show this information. But let's see before we going there. So we need to either we can pass the username and password, or else if we can pass the API token. So if you want to use API tokens, navigate to the settings and my user, go to API token, just click on token, put some generic name, and once you click on generate token, it asks you to copy the token. So don't no click on immediately okay, because the token will not be visible later. So you have to copy that time and store it somewhere. Otherwise, you have to disable it and enable the one more time. So I already copied this one. So let me go into the Boomi process. Okay, I'll just explain you how what I did. So this is a Atompshere API. So I used the same thing as my visual one, and I selected the API token. I put, as you can see, I did not enter any my password. I just put my username and then I just put the API token. So this is the only information. The API token which I put is copied from here during generation of the API token. Once the API token is key in, what I did, I went to operation. I imported the profile. I imported the operation. I selected when you go here, when you just select this connection and when you just click on, so I selected here is a connector is a one of the object. So once you go, it shows the list of objects that I have. These are the objects only. These are the objects only. You will be able to see on the object base. So you can see here, I search for connector here. Okay, so this is the same thing I selected. So when you select automatically profile imports, you can see what under the fields you will get. You will get only two, type and name. So what I did, I exposed this as I wrapped this connector as a web services. So what I did, I just went here. I just copied that into a flat file to see any duplicate values will be coming to suppress the duplicate values. I just mapped the two fields, connector name and connector type. And after that, I just did the combined document because this connector will give me like one record per document. So that's why I combined everything into one document so that multiple documents will not be flowing. All the documents will be with comma separated values with the flat file. After that, I did some InQ filtering here. The InQ filtering, how we can do InQ filtering in flat files is you can select the InQ options here. That's the thing. The same profile, nothing is doing here. So later I realized it's not coming, it's not generating any duplicate value. So this doesn't make any sense actually. So after that, I generating a table kind of here, generating a table kind of thing here to display in a table format. I select the border something one and then give some color. And just first header, I'm just displaying a connector name and connector type and all the values I'm just displaying over here. And then I'm just adding the root tag here. So this one, I enable it as a get here. So I use this one. So you just go to here. Where do you get this? Yeah, this since I already used, this is my whole base URL. Just click on that. So since the service is already deployed, you will be able to see it only takes, it doesn't take any request and gives a response in HTML format. So let's go to, let's see that. Okay, you can see these are the list of connector types are available here from the. So this the reason why it took is because it has a lot of connector documents it is being returning. So that's why it just returning each and everything here. You can see this will give you like a lot of insights about what connectors are available, and this is visible on your Boomi start shape, but this is actual technical name behind the hood. So this is a technical name. But if you want to anything component metadata, I wanted to make another video. In that, I'll be using this output so that that's the reason I'm just trying to, because we don't know like what is the actual technical value under the hood. So this is the display name or label name will be displayed on the Boomi connector. Whenever we go anything here, right, on the start shape connectors, we'll see all these things here. What type of connector? This, whatever you are seeing here is a label. So even you can see Atompshere API also should be there. You can see here, Atompshere. The technical name for that is Boomi API. So with this, there are a lot of use cases have been we can derive. Will component API metadata will give you the lot of use case. There is already documentation mentioned like who has recently changed, what if any connections are not there in a specific folder, it will list out any components deleted, who has changed last from duration, given duration. So there are a lot of and you can also retrieve the certificates, any certificates that are going to expire and send out an email. There are a lot of use cases that you can derive with this Atompshere API connector. That's definitely helpful for building any internal monitoring tools, monitoring related activities. Okay, I hope this helpful. So next video will come up with component metadata. We'll see how we can do. But this video will just explains how you can use Atompshere API connector, how you can build the standard Boomi web services. With I'm making the web services not as a SOAP call. I'm making this as a simple REST call. I don't cannot say REST call. It's a simple plain HTTP call I'm just making, and using the inbuilt capabilities to translate this into with some dummy manipulations. We will be able to generate the HTML content. Okay, that's all I wanted to cover for this session. Thank you so much for watching this video.